The night my brother's credit card got declined in front of 20 people, I was sitting close enough to watch the color drain from his face. I didn't say a word. I just picked up my glass of Pinot Noir, took a slow sip, and smiled at my son across the table. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My name is Elise. I'm 32 years old. I manage the private dining program at one of the nicest hotels in Columbus, Ohio, and for most of my adult life, I've been the sibling nobody in my family took seriously. My brother's name is Garrett, 3 years older than me, 6 inches taller, and approximately 10,000 times more confident than anyone who's actually earned the right to be. He married his wife, Daphne, 7 years ago at a ceremony our parents paid for in full. He and Daphne live in a 4-bedroom house in a suburb with a name that sounds like a golf course. He works in commercial real estate. He is, in every way that impresses people at holiday dinners, doing well. What he is not, and this took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out, is honest. My son Oliver is 9. He has his father's dark eyes and my stubbornness, which means he is either going to be a lawyer or a professional argument starter. His dad and I split up 4 years ago amicably, which is a word that means we still have each other's numbers and neither of us has set anything on fire. Oliver spends half his time with me and half with his dad, and he is the single best thing that has ever happened in my life, full stop. I mention Oliver because he matters to what happened. He matters a lot. It was a Saturday in early November. My parents had booked a celebration dinner, their 40th wedding anniversary, and they'd asked me to arrange it at the hotel where I work. The Halcyon Room. It's the kind of place where the menus don't list prices and the bread basket arrives before you've even unfolded your napkin. I get a family rate there, which is significant, because a dinner for 12 at the Halcyon Room without any discount would run upward of $2,000 before wine. I had been planning this dinner for 6 weeks. I coordinated with the chef, confirmed dietary restrictions, arranged a small surprise dessert presentation with my parents' wedding photo printed on edible paper, and reserved the best table in the room, the one in the curved alcove that looks out over the city. I was, in other words, the entire reason this dinner was happening the way it was. My brother called me the week before. "Hey," he said. "So I was thinking Daphne's sister is in town that weekend. Is it okay if she comes?" I told him I need to let the kitchen know, but sure, it was fine. And her husband. Fine. And their 2 kids. I paused. "Garrett, that's 15 people now. It's a big table." It was not a big enough table for 15 people. I rearranged everything. I moved us to a larger private dining room, re-coordinated with the kitchen, called in a favor with the sommelier to rearrange the wine service. I did not complain about this because I wanted my parents' evening to be perfect. What I should have done, and I know this now, is ask more questions. The night of the dinner, Oliver and I arrived about 20 minutes early so I could check in with the staff. He was wearing his little navy blazer that he only agrees to put on for important things, and he was already interrogating me about whether the restaurant had a kids' menu. "They have a Wagyu beef slider," I told him. He made a face. "What's Wagyu?" "Fancy cow." "How fancy?" "Very." He considered this. "Does fancy cow taste different from regular cow?" "You're going to have to try it and report back." He took this assignment seriously. That's the kind of kid he is. My parents arrived next, my mom in her navy wrap dress, my dad in the jacket she'd bought him 2 Christmases ago, that he refuses to acknowledge is slightly too small in the shoulders. They looked happy. They looked the way I'd been hoping they'd look. My mom grabbed both my hands when she saw the room and said, "Elise, this is beautiful." And I felt that warm, specific satisfaction of having done something right. Then Garrett arrived. He came in with Daphne on one side and Daphne's sister, Renata, on the other. And behind them were Renata's husband, 2 kids under the age of 7, and this is the part I hadn't accounted for, 2 other people I didn't recognize. I caught Garrett's eye across the room. He gave me a look I can only describe as preemptively unbothered, the look of a man who has decided in advance that whatever inconvenience he has caused is not going to be his problem. I went over to him quietly. "Who are those 2 people?" Business associates, he said. They were in town, it made sense. Garrett, this is Mom and Dad's anniversary dinner. And they'd love to meet them. Relax, it's fine. It was not fine. It was 2 additional people, no advance notice to the kitchen, and my father is allergic to shellfish, so the staff keeps a careful eye on cross-contamination, which becomes significantly more complicated with an expanded guest list I didn't know about. I excused myself, spoke quietly to our server, made it work. I always make it work. Dinner began. The food was extraordinary. The sommelier had pulled a beautiful Willamette Valley Pinot that my dad loved so much, he asked 3 times who had chosen it. The appetizers came out timed perfectly. Oliver ate the Wagyu slider and announced with great authority that fancy cow was, in fact, better than regular cow. My mom cried a little at the photos, happy tears, the kind that make an evening feel real. Garrett spent most of dinner talking loudly to his business associates about a development deal in the short north. He kept refilling their glasses before the sommelier could, and at one point asked our server for another bottle of the good stuff without specifying which one, so I quietly intercepted and redirected. After dinner came, I noticed Garrett lean over to Daphne and say something I couldn't hear. She nodded. He looked satisfied about something. I found out what it was when our server came to find me. She pulled me aside near the service corridor, looking slightly uncomfortable. Your brother asked me to make sure his part of the check is processed with the staff family rate. I looked at her. He asked for the family discount. Yes, he said you'd approve it. The family rate at the Halcyon Room is a benefit extended to employees and their immediate family for personal occasions. It's not a blanket discount that covers whoever someone decides to bring to dinner. It's also, and this is the part that matters, specifically tied to my employment, my discount, my benefit. I'll handle it, I told her. I went back to the table. The check had been split into 2 portions. My parents' portion, which I had always planned to cover as my anniversary gift to them, and a second portion for Garrett's side, which included himself, Daphne, Renata, her husband, their 2 kids, and the 2 business associates. I looked at the number. With the family discount applied, it would have been around $680. Without it, it was just over $1,400. I stood there for a moment with the leather check presenter in my hand and thought about 6 weeks of planning. I thought about Oliver, who had been excited about this dinner for a month and had worn his navy blazer without being asked twice. I thought about my mother saying, "This is beautiful," with her hands around mine. I thought about the 2 business associates my brother had added to a family dinner without telling me. Then I thought about something else. About 3 months earlier, my dad had mentioned, casually, the way he mentions things he isn't sure how to feel about, that he'd noticed some unusual withdrawals from the joint savings account he and my mom keep for the house stuff, medical expenses, emergency repairs. The account both kids had grown up knowing was off limits. He hadn't wanted to make a big deal of it. He wasn't sure he was reading the statement right. I had asked him to forward me the statement. I'd spent 2 evenings in September going through the numbers. The withdrawals, 4 of them over 8 months, totaling a little over $22,000, corresponded almost exactly with dates I remembered. Garrett's kitchen renovation, the trip he and Daphne took to Portugal that he'd posted extensively on Instagram, the new car in their driveway. I hadn't said anything yet. I'd been trying to confirm before I said anything. I talked to a friend of mine who does estate planning just to understand what my parents' options were. I had a folder on my laptop at home with screenshots and notes. Standing there with the check presenter, I thought about that folder. I walked back to our server. "Process the check normally," I said. "No family rate on the second portion." She nodded. What happened next took about 4 minutes. From across the room, I watched our server present the check to Garrett's side of the table. I watched him open the presenter. I watched his expression shift, a quick compression of his features, the jaw tightening, the glance over at Daphne. He looked across the room at me. I was talking to my mom about something. But I was watching him the way you watch something you've been waiting for. He excused himself and came over. "There's a mistake on the check," he said quietly. "There isn't. The rate is wrong. You're supposed to." The family rate applies to my immediate family on personal occasions, I said. Mom and Dad's portion is taken care of. I'm covering it as their anniversary gift. He stared at me. Elise? The discount is a benefit tied to my employment, Garrett. I can't extend it to business associates. That's actually against the hotel's policy, and I could get in trouble for it. That last part was true. That part, I want to be clear, was completely true. Those aren't just business associates, they're friends. You added them to a family dinner the night of without telling me? I didn't even know their names until an hour ago. His voice dropped lower. You're really doing this right now? Tonight? In front of everyone? I'm not doing anything, I said. I'm just telling you that the check is correct. He looked at me for a long moment. Then he said something that I had heard before, in different forms, over the course of our entire childhood. You've always had a problem with me. I kept my voice very even. I have a problem with a lot of things right now. But tonight isn't the time. Tonight is about Mom and Dad. He went back to the table. I gave it a moment, then I followed. Here's what I want to tell you about what it feels like to sit across from someone who has been taken from your parents and smile politely while dessert is served. It feels like holding something heavy in both hands for a very long time. You don't drop it, but you feel every second of the weight. The dessert came out. The edible photo was a hit. My dad laughed so hard he knocked over his water glass. My mom held it up to show everyone, and her hands were shaking a little. The good kind of shaking. Oliver asked if he could eat the photo part, and I said yes, and he immediately did, without ceremony, which made my dad laugh again. It was a good night. It was genuinely a good night, and I want to say that clearly because what was happening underneath it did not get to take that from my parents. I wasn't going to let it. Garrett's credit card was declined. I know this because I was standing close enough to see it, and because our server had a particular expression she gets. I've worked with her for 2 years. I know her face when something unexpected happens at the table. Garrett handed the card back quietly and said something to her. She went away. She came back. He handed her a different card. That one went through. I don't know what was on the first card. I don't know the specifics of their finances, beyond what I'd pieced together from my parents' bank statements. But I know what it looks like when someone is more stretched than they're letting on, and I know what it looks like when someone has been spending money they don't actually have. I recognized the look because I had been watching it all evening without him knowing. When the dinner was over and people were gathering coats and saying their goodbyes, Garrett found me by the entrance. He'd recovered his composure. He can do that, reset quickly, smooth things over, move forward like nothing happened. It's a skill that has served him well for 35 years. Good dinner, he said. I'm glad. A pause. Look. About the check. I get it. You were just following the rules. I looked at him. Yes. No hard feelings. I need to talk to you and Mom and Dad next week, I said. Not about tonight. About something else. Something moved across his face, quick and then gone. What about? I'll explain then. I just wanted you to know it's coming. I know. I know the advice was to say nothing, to just let the lawyer handle it. My estate planning friend had told me not to tip anyone off, but I looked at my brother standing there in the lobby of the hotel, in his nice jacket, next to the parents whose savings he'd been quietly draining, and I couldn't make myself say nothing. I needed him to spend the next week knowing something was coming. I needed him to sit with that. Maybe that was petty. Maybe it wasn't the smart play. I'm okay with that. The meeting with my parents happened the following Thursday. I brought printouts. I brought the bank statements my dad had sent me, the corresponding dates, the Instagram posts, which, I know, sounds aggressive. But when you're trying to show someone that a Portugal trip and a $6,000 withdrawal happened in the same 2-week window, you need receipts that are easy to understand. My mother cried, not the happy kind this time. My father sat very still and looked at the papers for a long time without saying anything. Garrett had called them both before the meeting. I found out later and tried to get ahead of it. He'd told them I was going through something and that I had always had a difficult relationship with him. He tried to frame it as a sibling conflict before I'd even walked in the door. It didn't work, because the numbers were right there. And because my dad, for all his quiet steadiness, is not a man who looks away from something once it's been put in front of him. They contacted a family attorney the following week. I don't know all the details of what happened after that. It's their money, their decision, their relationship with their son to navigate however they need to. What I know is that my dad changed the account information and that my mom called me 2 weeks later and said, "We didn't want to see it. Thank you for making us see it." That phone call is sitting somewhere in my chest still. I don't know exactly where, but I can feel it. Oliver, for his part, has no idea any of this happened. He knows his uncle seems a little weird at family stuff now. He has decided he doesn't really care about this and has moved on to more important concerns, like whether fancy cow can be served on a regular burger bun and whether that would make it less fancy. I don't have a clean conclusion for you. No ribbon. Life didn't wrap up into a lesson with edges. What I have is this. The night of my parents' anniversary dinner, I stood in a hotel I've given 4 years of my life to, held a check presenter in my hands, and made a quiet decision to stop making things easy for someone who had never made things easy for anyone. The family discount is for family. The real kind. The kind that doesn't drain your parents' savings account and call it borrowing. The kind that shows up early to check on the kitchen and stays late to make sure the photos came out right. The kind that wears a navy blazer without being asked twice, because they understand that some nights are important. My son understood that. He's 9. Some people never do. I keep coming back to the moment my dad sat at that Thursday kitchen table, looking at the bank statements without saying anything. Just looking, like he was waiting for the numbers to rearrange themselves into something that made more sense. They didn't, of course. Numbers don't do that. That's actually the thing about them. They just sit there, patient and indifferent, telling the same story every time you look. What I've learned, slowly and not always gracefully, is that the choices we make have a way of compounding, not in some cosmic mystical sense, just practically. Garrett didn't end up with a declined card and a lawyer's letter because the universe conspired against him. He ended up there because he made a series of decisions, each one slightly worse than the last, and each one made a little easier by the fact that nobody had stopped him yet. That's how it works mostly. Not lightning bolts, just accumulation. And I've had to look at my own side of that ledger too, because for years I made things easy for him. I rearranged the table for 15 people. I intercepted the wine order. I quietly fixed the things he broke without ever saying, out loud, that something was broken. I told myself I was keeping the peace. I was actually just deferring the cost, and the cost was always going to land somewhere. Oliver is 9, and he already understands something that took me 3 decades to learn. That you show up for the things that matter, and you show up prepared. He wore his blazer. He asked good questions about the food. He paid attention. That's not a small thing. That's actually the whole thing, just in miniature. I think about what it takes to do right by the people you love. Not in the grand gesture sense, but in the daily, unsexy, logistical sense. The 6 weeks of planning. The call to the sommelier. The folder on my laptop with the screenshots and the dates. That's not dramatic. It's just careful. It's deciding that the truth matters enough to do the work of finding it and the harder work of saying it out loud. There's a kind of strength that doesn't announce itself. It doesn't flip tables or deliver speeches. It shows up early, checks on the kitchen, stays late, and when the moment comes, and the moment always comes, it's ready. I was ready on that Thursday not because I'm exceptional, but because I'd been paying attention for months while everyone else was looking away. Garrett called what I did having a problem with him. I don't think that's right. I think I finally stopped having a problem with myself, with the version of me that kept smoothing things over because confrontation felt worse than injustice. It doesn't actually. Injustice just feels quieter. My mom said thank you, my dad changed the account. Oliver ate the edible photo without ceremony and moved on with his life. That's enough. That's genuinely enough.